we're going to talk briefly. The third topic is ergonomics. And here, we sell the isolators three different ways actually. Mounted on a hydraulic table that's adjustable. It could be on a fixed height table, or you could put it on one of your own benches. We recommend the hydraulic table because it's ergonomic, and you can adjust it to the exact level that you need just by cranking the simple crank up or down. So, within a facility, you're going to have a variety of people using the isolators. They're going to be different heights. We feel that the hydraulic table is a major advantage and a very good feature to incorporate when you're first buying the isolator. We're going to talk about entry and exit procedures. And there's two major differences in how you'd be using the isolator depending on whether it's positive or negative pressure. In either case, one of the things you really have to make sure is that before you start, you want to verify that your doors are closed on both sides. So you're going to go look in and actually even put your hands in the isolator and actually check that the door is clamped. Snap it shut. Make sure that the outside is shut. And the reason for doing that is you don't know if somebody else in the facility opened the door, or maybe you left it slightly ajar the last time and didn't clamp it. It might be all right on the outside, but if you left the inner door open and you open the outer door, now the whole system is blown and you've got potentially got contamination. So really very important to pay attention to before you start anything. Make sure that your clamps are closed. Okay, so we're going to talk about positive pressure operation first of all. In positive pressure operation, you're more concerned with what you're putting into the isolator than what you're taking out. Okay, so you're going to have all of your everything is going to be prepared. You could have your water bottles with the water in them already autoclaved, bottles of sterile water in the square packs. A variety of ways of doing that, but there's your typical water bottle. You'd have your food packaged, either irradiated packaging like this where it's vacuum sealed, or alternately some sort of jar arrangement that you have your food already packed into those jars. And then we're also going to you have your bedding. This is Aspen shaving, highly recommended for isolators. A better product in my estimation than a lot of the like extruded paper is bad. It's very dusty. Corn cob is very dusty. The two things I'd recommend would be the Aspen shavings and/or the paper chip products like Alpha Chip. Okay, so now you have your products. You have to bring them into the isolator. So you know that they're sterile on the inside. So the only thing you really have to make sure is that they're now sterile on the outside. And that the way we do that is, again, verify that the inner door is closed, open the outer door, and what you're going to do with there's two different methods here. We have the hand spray bottle, again, a very inexpensive hand spray bottle, or we have this arrangement that would have to be hooked up to a compressor. Both of them are very effective. Some folks feel that these sprayers are more effective because it atomizes the gas. It gives it a very, very fine very fine particles. So it really mists the whole isolator. In fact, they call fogging it. And if you use one of these, you'd see why they call it fogging. You actually can't even see your hand in front of you inside the isolator when you use this. So it is very effective. There's no arguing that. However, with the hand sprayer, the sterilants that we recommend kill in the vapor phase, so the particle size I don't really feel is all that important. It's a matter of opinion though. So you have your spray bottle. So what you're going to do is you're going to have all your items prepped up and ready to put into the isolator. So what we would have, and this is just for demonstration purposes, you'd have a little cart with a bath set up with your cold sterilant in there. So you're going to dunk your product in and make sure that it gets completely immersed in the cold sterilant. Okay? You're going to allow that to drip off a little bit. You're going to take the hand sprayer, spray the entire inside of the port, mist the bag again, drop your supplies in, and then repeat that with all the items that you have to go into the isolator. One of the basics, and then before you close it up, spray it again, close the doors. One of the basics in loading the port is to really maximize the amount of supplies you bring in at any given time. That minimizes the numbers of openings and closings. Opening and closing the door is when you most frequently get contamination. Okay? So the last thing that we'd really have to talk about in positive pressure is when you transfer live animals. So what do you do in the case of live animals? Again, when we're talking about supplies, a typical, the kill time to kill the bacteria or fungus or anything that's on the outside of the container is typically in the 20 to 30 minute range. So at live animals, that's not going to work. So what you'd have is a sterile jar. You do your transfer under a clean hood. You transfer your animals into a sterile jar. You'd introduce that sterile jar into the port. You'd spray the outside of it, spray the port, put the little container in, and introduce it into the isolator. I'd recommend usually no more than 5 minutes. The animal should have a sufficient amount of air in, say, like a 2-liter Nalgene jar. Alternately, some of the biocontainment cages that are out there for some of the rack systems make very nice transfer devices. As long as they're completely sealed, you could then just mist the outside of that, do it all in a clean hood, put the animal in, close it up, spray the outside, spray the port, pass it in, and your entry procedure is all set there. Again, just waiting 5 minutes to enter the animal into the isolator. Now we have to talk about the opposite side of the equation. When you have, what do you do when you have a quarantine situation on known infectious animals, and you don't want the supply, you don't want those pathogens to get outside the isolator and potentially contaminate other animals in the facility. In that case, what you're going to do is you're going to have your spray bottle fill with your sterilant, your cold sterilant, and that is going to be inside the isolator. You're going to have to introduce that into the isolator first. Anything that's coming out of the isolator, you're going to package up in a plastic bag, spray the outside of it off from the inside, spray the port, put it in the port, close the door, and then again, you're going to wait your kill time to bring those materials out. So it's just the reverse of the clean. You're going to spray from the inside and spray it out. So you have spray in procedures for clean, spray out procedures for the dirty side or quarantine. Okay, and talking about the features, the other feature is the internal lighting. So we have an on-off switch here. And just if you rotate around here, you look at this, there are 4 screws that hold this in place. If you need to change the light bulb at any time, you don't take the box, the cover off and play with the wiring. Just take those the two on either side that secure it to the box, lift that off, it all comes out as one unit, unscrew the bulb just as you would any household bulb and screw it back in. So that gives you sufficient light to do husbandry and that sort of thing. But then there's also the possibility of taking any kind of external light source that you have and getting additional light where you need it. And usually that's done by just sticking it up on the roof, and that gives you additional lighting. Now this is a very crude example, but you could have any kind of fluorescent fixture, high intensity fixture to focus the light on where you need it. Primarily we'd do that through the top, it's translucent, but you could even shine it from the front if you need be onto the specimen that you're using. In the fourth topic, we have entry and exit procedures and also startup. The first thing that we're going to cover is startup. So when you receive the isolator, we do not sterilize them. They come to you unsterile. All right, so you have to sterilize them. So what you're going to do, the first thing you're going to do is to get your spray bottle like this, or the other spray apparatus that I showed earlier. For a 3-foot isolator or a 4-foot isolator, this is actually a 4-foot isolator, I'd recommend somewhere in the vicinity of 500 to 350 mLs of solution. We use Clydox. I'd recommend Clydox, but any of the other MD10 is good, Spore Cleanse. There's a variety of cold sterilants out there that would sterilize the isolator. Okay? So the first thing you're going to need to do is get your bottle, and it's going to have to go inside the isolator. So we're going to put it into the port, I'm going to go in through the glove arms, and I'm going to bring the spray bottle into the isolator. We're going to bring the spray bottle into the isolator. I got it here. I'm going to close the inner door, make sure that both of those clamps are sealed, and you got that nice clean snap when you close it. And what we're going to do is we're going to entirely wet the isolator. So I'm going to spray the roof, I'm going to spray the shelves, I'm going to spray up under the shelf, I'm going to spray a little bit into the filter ports, the floor of the isolator. Then I'm going to take the arms. I'm going to spray the arm, spray the fingertips thoroughly, wet the whole sleeve. Then, lastly, I'm going to open up the port, and I'm going to give that a spray as well. So at this point, you should have used at least 350 mLs of solution, so you thoroughly wet the whole entire isolator. Okay, I'm going to pass the bottle back out. I'm going to close it up. I'm going to make sure that the cap is off, all the caps are off the filter. Okay, so the caps are off the inside of the isolator. You've sprayed into the ports, we call it the ports, the inlets for the filters, the exhaust, and the intake, just a light spray. We're going to come around to the side, and what we're going to do is we're now going to run the blower motor. There's two directions on the blower motor. You got positive and negative if possible on the same blower motor. So right now it's going to be in positive. We're going to run it positive for 15 minutes. You'll know it's positive because the front will start blowing out that way. 15 minutes in positive. Okay, to make the isolator run in negative now for 15 minutes, what we're going to do is to unscrew the blower motor, turn it around, and thread it back into that coupling, that same coupling. Thread it in, get it in there nice and solid. All right, so we've turned the blower motor around now. It's running in negative pressure, so you'll know it's running in negative because it's pulling the flexible front inward. And we're going to do that for an additional 15 minutes. At the end of that time, we're going to unplug the blower motor. We're going to shut off the ball valve. We'll plug the exhaust. We'll just put that cap back into the filter inlet, and we let it set for 3 hours. That is perhaps overkill, but during that time, the Clydox is, or whatever sterilant you're using is in the vapor phase. It's killing everything that it's on contact with, but also killing by the gas that it off-gasses into the chamber. So once we've let the 3 hours stand, we're now going to go back and we're going to reverse the blower motor to the positive side. Okay, and we're going to let it run overnight. It's a minimum of about 12 hours to get all of the vapors out of the isolator. I recommend turning it back on, sterilizing maybe around 11, 12 o'clock, turning the blowers on to run, for the overnight. Start it as you're going to leave the facility, because you don't want your people in there working with the isolator and inhaling those gases. So do it at the very end of the day, plug it in just before you go, let it run overnight, and like I said, 12 hours. When you come in the next day, if you go over and you sniff by the exhaust filter, you shouldn't smell any chlorine, that chlorine smell. And also, if you go into the isolator and you use your fingers in the gloves and you touch everything, you shouldn't see any wetness. If it's wet, you got to continue to let it run on positive for a little bit longer and just get rid of all of the gas inside.